Good morning, welcome to the Alan Brazil Sports Breakfast. Max Rushton and the Southend boss Phil Brown with you until 10, all brought to you by Ford. Delighted to say we're joined in the studio this morning by the Standard's football writer Tom Colomossi, who'll take us through the stories making the back pages, including Manchester City putting 50 million in for John Stones, the start of the PGA Championships. But let's start in Manchester, or potentially Madrid, with the Paul Pogba story. How are you, Tom? Thanks for coming in.
Very well, thank you. Absolute pleasure.
What are they saying? He's going to Man United, he's going to Real Madrid.
Yeah, you alluded to it on the programme before. It's two slightly conflicting stories. So the back page of The Sun, we've got £112 million headline, Pogba's United deal done as a subdeck. A top Juventus source quoted saying that the deal's complete. And this will be a huge amount of money. Of course, Paul Pogba left Manchester United when he was 18 years old, just £800,000. I think the 112 million will be the cut that the agent Mino Raiola will get, which is anything between 18 and 24 million pounds. Not bad if you can get it. But this version of events isn't necessarily backed up elsewhere, where they have quotes from Zinedine Zidane, the Real Madrid coach, who is a big admirer of Pogba. He's quoted as saying, "I don't know if he'll come until the transfer window closes. Anything can happen." For what it's worth, I've seen quite a bit in the Spanish press this month that Madrid weren't quite sure that they wanted to pay the price for Pogba. They think he's a good player, but they're not quite sure, after how he was in the European Championships, if he's worth all this money. I think maybe Zinedine Zidane is trying to keep the deal alive, but Marca, the Spanish paper, who are very well informed on Madrid, they've got the Gareth Bale signing, to use one of many examples, have always been that they're quite cool on Pogba Madrid. So you think probably the sticking point is Raiola's cut here.
Which is just, I mean, it is, the more you hear about it, the more staggering it is, isn't it?
Well, something I'd like to ask Phil about, actually, is that when you get United, if Pogba goes there, you'll have Pogba, Raiola player, Mkhitaryan, Raiola player, Ibrahimovic, Raiola player. There's Mendes players there. When you have a group of players represented by one agent, can it create problems for a manager in a dressing room? Can it get quite cliques, or can an agent become too powerful?
It happens even at my level, where one, obviously you get a deal on the table, and that player walks into the change room and tells everybody what a good agent he is, what a good deal, what he did a good job in the boardroom, etc., etc. And before you know it, he's recruited 4 or 5, and I think that's a stronghold. I had to break it at my level,
Really?
I had one agent had 6 players when I arrived at the football club, and I think that's unhealthy. When you see I'm having a team meeting, and then 6 of them walk out of that team meeting into another team meeting with an agent, I'm thinking, what information is he giving them? 3 of them are in the team, 3 of them are not in the team. Is he telling them to move? Is he telling them to slap transfer? It can become...
but do you have to be quite diplomatic? I mean, because they've got power, the agents, whether we like it or we don't. They can influence their players
without a shadow of a doubt. Yeah, diplomacy is key to any kind of success that you have, and also compromises as well. You have to get the agent on side, of course, until that moment comes where you break his stronghold, as it were. With 3 or 4 at that level, the manager has to have the final say in everything.
Yeah.
Where you go into a boardroom, he has to have the final say. If you go into a changing room, he has to have the final say. If you go into a meeting with an agent and he's got 5 or 6 in you have to have the final say.
But the cheek of this guy to wait until... Was he always going to add on, 20 minutes ago? Basically, you get it done, you get the press talking about it, you get the fans excited, you get everyone going, well, Man United going, we've got to get him now. I mean, they have to get him. And so he can almost say, actually, I need £50 million or whatever. And it's going to happen, and you just think, how is that a thing? How can that be real?
It probably was at the start of the deal, and then you push it up and push it up and push it up when you realise how much the club wants your player. But yeah, it's fascinating what Phil said there about the control an agent might have, because if you look at Manchester United post Alex Ferguson, the first summer Van Gaal was there, then a lot of the players who went in there were George Mendes players, weren't they? You had Di Maria, you had Falcao, and again there's a lot of Raiola players going in there, and it just makes you wonder, is that perhaps lack of real football experience at Manchester United on the transfer side, and they're relying on agents to get the deals done?
Well, I think, the intervention of COOs, CEOs, directors of football, it actually weakens the hand of the manager. So if they're sitting down with the player and the agent before the manager sits down with them, that's the important part is the player relationship to the manager. There's no doubt about it. But that is being affected by 3 or 4 people. That becomes weakened immensely. Yeah. And then he's got 5 or 6 in your change room. You haven't got really a strong hand anymore,
In pure footballing terms, do we think Paul Pogba is exactly what Manchester United need?
I think if they find a role for him and he plays that role, he will be an outstanding player for them. I think Paul Pogba's a fine player, there's no dispute about that, but his best year, I think, was at Juventus the year before last season, where he had experienced players around him, like Andrea Pirlo, like Arturo Vidal, like Carlos Tevez, even though he played in a different position in that defence, and he had a very clear role, Pogba. I think when Pirlo, Vidal and Tevez left, there was more onus on him to be the main man, and he started trying to be a number 10, and he got the number 10 shirt, a playmaker, trying to do a bit of everything. That was the impression I got from him.
But did you get that impression from the manager that was his role? Did he pass that on to him? Was it allowed to be the number 10, or did he just drift into that?
I think he drifted into it. I think that they said, well, you know, won't you take a bit more responsibility? But he started doing a lot more flicks and tricks. A good second half of the season he had with Juventus. But I think under a coach like Mourinho, if he says, this is what I want you to do, this is what you will do, he can be the best in that role, that kind of box-to-box.
And is he the kind of guy that will just buy into a Jose plan and just head down and do it?
I think you have to, Max. I think you have to.
That probably depends on Mino Raiola a bit as well, doesn't it? If he goes speaking to him, he's not playing me, the manager's not playing me in this position, and what Phil's been talking about happens all over again.
I think that is the most important part of the Premier League this year is the intervention now of the philosopher. You know, all these guys, these great coaches are coming in with philosophies, and they've got strength of character. They've got character, full stop. And if you don't adhere to it, they can actually go to the board in strong moments and say to them, Pogba's not the player. Move him on. See if you can get 100 million for him.
That's true. I mean, that's true for all managers. But you sort of get the impression with Jose quite quickly. You can go, if you don't track back once, he's like, right, done.
That I don't know. That's
or is that nonsense? Is that just?
I don't think it's nonsense. But again, I think that it's so much harder now for managers to do that because of the increasing number of outside influences in the game. So probably 20 years ago, a manager could say, right, mate, you're not doing that anymore, see you later. But now, because there are so many competing influences, you have to be a diplomat, as you said.
The more, I think it's brilliant, this conversation, because you have to have water carriers in your team. You have to have your Didier Deschamps. And that's why he's become a great manager, because he actually then recognises, well, I couldn't do that, but get on with it. So Pogba's not a water carrier. However, in the Euros, I thought he was working hard. I thought he worked hard for the team, and he got his shape back. Now, do we want all the flair players to get back in shape? It's that transition of the ball, because you've got 11 players out there that can handle the ball, so when they give it away, they get it back, and they give it to the players that can really turn the game on. But you still have to have your water carriers, and they're important.
But I suppose it's more subtle than that, isn't it? Because every player's got, at that level, they've all got such ability.
Conte's just paid, they've paid 32 million for a water carrier from Leicester. You're going to Chelsea and you think to yourself, wow, where's the game going here? You need 32 million for a water carrier and 112 now for a flair player.
Were you on the pitch, Phil? Were you a water carrier?
Oh, absolute, 100%. 100% water carrier.
You need more of those than the flair players, don't you?
You can't have all flair players. You have to have that blend, You probably only need 2 or 3 flair players that can win a game for you, But you need your shape, and you need your discipline.
Is the key for those water carriers to know that's what... When you were there, did you go, this is what I'm good at and I'm not going to try any step-overs?
I don't think it's key for me to know that they're the water carrier. I think it's key that they know that. They know their own identity. They know what they can do. If they start doing flicks and Cruyff turns and stuff like that in front of their back four, and by the way, the 21s are actually promoting that, stick a little Cruyff in if you're a goalkeeper, in your own 6 yard, it doesn't matter. But it does matter, where you do it on the field of play. If you're doing a Cruyff in the final third and it produces a goal, then you're not a water carrier.
What's interesting is that Pogba will have to do quite a lot of that, because if you look at some of the other players they've signed, Mkhitaryan's a fantastic player, not defensive player. Zlatan's not going to do much running. Wayne Rooney's getting towards that stage of his career where you want him doing his best work in the attacking area of the pitch. So Pogba will have to do quite a lot of that donkey work. And
do you look at that Manchester United squad and think they've brought the right players in, or the big players in?
The big players at this stage. I love Mkhitaryan. I think he's a fabulous player. I really, really do. I remember seeing him play on TV. This shows how cool I am, watching a game for Armenia about 5 years ago on a Friday. But he was fabulous. And then I thought, crikey, this guy's good. So he'll be a fine player. But with Mourinho, historically, he seeks to get the defence right first. So I think that will be the basis of their success, or otherwise
he might have moved. I think he might have moved in terms of his philosophy. He might be thinking it's all about going forward now.
Really?
I might have moved. I don't know. Listen, you take the United job, you can do what you want.
Yeah, fascinating to watch. Right, Tom, you'll hang around for another 15 minutes. Any more from the papers? Tom Colomosi from the Evening Standard. You're listening to the Sports Breakfast on Talk Sport. Alan Brazil had a winner at the GG's, so he's not here today. He's having a nice morning somewhere else. Max Rushton with you alongside the Southend manager Phil Brown.
We had a long flight last night, a short session this morning. We could have left Mama Sacco here because he's filming me while I give the interview here.
Yeah. I have just one question. Yeah. How long do you think you can live here?
Oh, actually, I don't have to think about it. You should think about it. Because only one of us came late last night for departure in Liverpool. It was not me. Then it was you, by the way. We are here because we want to leave Mama here.
Jurgen Klopp, Mamadou Sakho, courtesy of Liverpool TV. Tom Colomossi from the Evening Standard says, looked at the papers. What's the story? How's it developed, this one?
Yes, Sakho sent home from this pre-season tour, and it's 3 separate breaches of the rules, according to the Daily Express. Jurgen Klopp quoted here saying he almost missed the plane's departure, he missed the treatment session, and he was late for a team meal. I'm looking to build a group here, so I have to start anew. Thought it maybe made sense that he flew home to Liverpool after 8 days. When we go back, we can talk about it. And this a bit is a continuation of what we were saying before the break about these managers with the strong characters saying, no, look, this is how I want it to happen. And he's shown exactly who's in charge here, hasn't he? It's quite an interesting step from Jurgen Klopp, just to send someone home from a pre-season tour, because it means everyone else then knows exactly what.
But it's not a crazy regime, is it? It's not like the first thing he did wrong, get home. He's given him sort of 2 strikes and you're out, 3 strikes and you're out. But, you know, for me, it shows you what Jurgen Klopp is. He's not a negotiator, but he's a man manager. You know, he's handled this guy. You remember him in the final where he was getting the concussion and he had to take him off, and he didn't want to come off. He wanted to run through a brick wall and show everybody that he was wearing the shirt with pride and this, that and the other. And Jurgen Klopp made the decision. He stormed down it, you know, and he looks like he's a strong character himself, Sakho, and a headstrong character. And he's got to understand when he goes across the white line, he expends that energy to release that tension, that pressure that he's under. And Jurgen Klopp's the manager that keeps it all in. So when he starts breaking regimes and being late and almost missing the plane, I mean, that's the first telltale sign.
Do you think you afford different things for different players? At my very average level of the team that I play for and manage, there are some players that have got to be there an hour before kick-off. But if Hamish is there 1 minute before because he's so good, he'll go straight on the pitch. Even if he's not in kit.
Do you do the thing where you tell them to be there at 2 because you want them to be there at 3?
Yeah. Oh, exactly. Yeah. But I mean, Phil, you know, more importantly, at a professional level, is it like you do this and it's done, or you've got some players that are so good or so important to you that they can push the envelope a bit, or do you not want to admit that?
You don't want to admit that, of course you don't. But he's allowed him 2 strikes there, and he's given him a 3rd one, and he's out. So everybody now will be thinking, can I go 2? Can I go 2 and then get done on the 3rd one? There's a lot of times where you have to draw the line and just say, that's no more. Yeah, we're not doing this anymore. Don't care who it is. We're not doing this anymore. I've got this little bit of a problem with referees last year, and I'm now going to go 0 tolerance with my players, with my staff, and myself. That referees, massive respect for them. You're not allowed to speak, you know, in the wrong manner. You know, get on with the game. And I'm going to go 0 tolerance, and I think it's important.
Do you think you'll be able to keep it up just because of the nature of the game, the passion of the game?
It is difficult.
9 months
it is difficult. It is difficult.
First 4 games you'll be okay, won't you? Because
you're
banned.
I'll be up my ladder. But no, it is important. You know, it's so important because it can cost you dearly. And if that little moment where you step over the line, you haven't dealt with it from a financial point of view, from a discipline point of view, you could lose a title because of it. You know.
In Pasadena, Chelsea beat Liverpool 1-0. Fabregas was sent off in that friendly. Tom, another story about wages and the continual rise of footballers' wages.
Yes, of course, this is a piece done off the back of Antonio Conte, the Chelsea coach, saying that crazy spending this summer. Piece in The Sun where they've spoken to Ray Ranson, a former player for Manchester City and Newcastle, now described as a world football financier. And he predicts that the next TV deal could be worth 20 billion. Of course, the most recent one was 5.1, wasn't it? So that's more than quadruple there. And he says that other companies, you know, people like Google, Yahoo, will come into the market and push the price up. So he thinks the result of that will be £500,000 a week for a player. Will not be normal, but for the very best players, it might be what they expect. I remember last season when Lionel Messi was doing his standard contract renegotiation strategy of suggesting that maybe he might be prepared to leave Barcelona and Manchester City of course, said, yeah, we'll have a bit of that, and 500,000 a week was the going rate apparently then for him, who's one of the best players in history. But this piece suggests that might be...
Your water carriers
normal.
will be on
Yeah.
500 grand. What do you do on week 3? I mean, once you've spent the first 2 weeks, like on third week, you're middle of January, you're like, oh.
Let's just get there, Max.
But it's a motivation problem, it must be as well, isn't it? That, again, it would make a manager's job harder, because if look, we can criticise footballers, but 99% of people, if you were earning a wage that meant if you stopped that day, you'd never have to work again, your motivation's not going to be the same.
I'm
It's
loyal
just human
to
nature.
Sky and TalkSport, and if somebody came and offered me twice the money anywhere else, I wouldn't.
Absolutely the same.
Absolutely wouldn't walk.
But it's if whatever job you did, if there's always that edge, isn't there, that I need to keep doing this because I need to pay various bills. So if there's very footballers who don't need to do that, I mean, then you're really relying on somebody's competitive edge, aren't you? And it must dull it.
I've seen many a team talk, and whatever motivation gets you out of bed in the morning, and a lot of people are, okay, money driven, but where sportsmen are concerned, I think it's the pressures that they put themselves under to succeed, and the money follows. If you really chase the pound, it's a different ball game to me. If you're chasing success, then the money follows.
Have you seen players lose it because of money? Like that they started and they were motivated, and then a big contract comes along and their attitude changes?
Absolutely, 100%. Yeah. But there goes the motivation for money, So then you found that one out,
But but especially when it's players who haven't done anything. That's the thing that people keep coming back to. You can be 21 and not really achieved anything. And John Stones goes 50 million. He'll get amazing wages. He's clearly a great prospect. Hasn't really done anything yet, and will have so much money that then you're relying on the character of the guy, aren't you?
Yes.
Well, I've got a boy in my change room at the moment, Niall Ranger, who a lot of people know about because of the history of Niall Ranger, but his motivation wasn't money, but it came in a 5-year deal at Newcastle. But he was thinking, I mean, Mike Ashley was throwing 5-year contracts at everybody because he thought that was the way forward. Why should we have to...
Hard, you got 8 years, didn't you?
Why do you have to trade every year? He was thinking, just keep the same squad this year, next year. So he gave 5-year contracts. So Niall Ranger gets a 5-year deal. And then he flies off the handle. He doesn't know how to handle it, And everybody else comes on board then, and then he loses his motivation to play the game because everything else seemed more attractive. He's now 25. He's back down to the level, I'm not saying that we're at, but working class level. And now he's having to earn his money. And what a difference in the guy. Totally different.
Tom, thanks for your time.
Pleasure.
Appreciate
Anytime.
that. Come again anytime. I mean, I won't be here unless Alan gets another win at the races. Tom Colomosi from the Evening Standard. You listen to the Sports Breakfast.